Hi, my name is Cesar Tovar, and this is the video portion of my Unit 3 exam. I will be using the four functions graphs and the aggregate expenditures graph to depict how aggregate demand is created using the information provided given the test. So I will begin with the consumption function graph, and I will be displaying both sets of data for the information given. Our first set of data is going to be depicted by a pink line, and for that consumption function, we have 4 trillion plus the 0.75 MPC times our real equilibrium GDP output at price level 247, which is 18 trillion. And for our second set of data, which will be depicted by an orange line, we have 4.2 trillion plus 0.75 MPC times the real equilibrium output GDP at price level 240, which is 18.8. And again, that'll be depicted by the orange line. Here we have our investment function graph, and it is depicting gross investment, which is national investment by businesses and firms, at 3 trillion, and it's a horizontal line because it is not affected by real GDP. Next, we have our net exports function graph, and our net exports currently sit at negative 0.5 trillion, and this is because we are taking in more imports than we are exporting in this model, and it is a horizontal line because it is not affected by real GDP either. And here we have our government purchases function, and our government purchases currently sit at 3 trillion in this model, and this is also a horizontal line like the other two graphs because, again, real GDP does not affect government purchases. Here we have our aggregate expenditures graph, where we will be adding consumption to investment to net exports to government purchases to determine our aggregate expenditures. At the bottom of the graph, we have our consumption function, which is our base level. When we add our investment function, we will be moving the aggregate expenditures upward by $3 trillion. Then we will add our net exports, which will actually be moving us downward by $0.5 trillion. And that will be depicted by an orange line. And then we will be moving back up after we add our government purchases, which will move us back up $3 trillion, and that is depicted by a blue line. In our bottom graph, which is our aggregate demand curve graph, we will see our long-run aggregate supply depicted there in the dark blue in the center at $18.5 trillion real GDP. Our short-run aggregate supply will be depicted in orange, and our short-run aggregate supply with a $0.5 trillion recession will be depicted in the light purple. To solve the $0.5 trillion recession, a hypothetical reduction in interest might improve investment spending by $0.5 trillion. In this particular model, our multiplier is 4, and this would increase the total equilibrium GDP by $2 trillion.